You guys have been in the news a lot. And speaking of those donors and speaking of alumni, like really stepped up. I mean, the 200 basically $50 million facility that you guys just did, like you got a sky bridge now. Like that's ridiculous. Like
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. It's insane spending that kind of, money investing in the program. Like that means that they are investing in you. That means that
Yeah.
they have a good relationship, because I mean, we talk about all the time. You can't get guys to give money unless they believe in the direction and where they're going. So like this new world and NIL and GMs and going on, like how has it been cultivating those relationships? And I mean, what do you have to do to be successful? And I know you got some great alums like Cody Campbell and getting them involved. Like, how does that work?
Well, they really have pushed all the chips in, man. Like the facility's absolutely incredible. We signed the #1 portal class in the country. They just have gone all in.
How did that happen?
Well, it's really a thought back in July, at the end of July, whenever there's a transition between NIL and revenue sharing. Cody Campbell really challenged myself and our personnel staff. James Blanchard is my GM. All this stuff that's coming out, we've been operating this way for 3 years. I took this job with an NFL model. I had a personnel department, and at the time he was director of player personnel, but I think we were also the first guy to name or first team to name a GM in James Blanchard, who went from director of player personnel to the GM. And, he challenged us like, okay, we're going to have a great year, but things are about to shift whenever it comes to NIL revenue sharing. We can take advantage of the world where you're kind of living in. And he said, so be prepared whenever that portal opens up. And so our guys worked tirelessly to identify the right guy in the program, not just a great player, but a great person. That's the coolest thing right now, to where things are going in a great direction. We have great players that we took out of the portal, but they're even better people. Like they have fit into Lubbock, Texas, into Texas Tech. We've been really lucky whenever it comes to that. And then I think they got a guy that understands. Man, I'm a Texan. I've never been anywhere else. This really is my dream job. I love being here. My wife loves Lubbock, Texas. She told me 2 years ago when we were 3-5 that I had to start winning some games because she loves living in Lubbock and she don't want to move anywhere else. And so I said I had to start coaching harder.
That's why you went on a 5-game win streak?
Yeah. And so I told her, I said, you need to start saying that a lot earlier, a lot of fire on me a lot earlier. But I think they feel that. I think, the thing about Texas Tech alumni and fans is they love this place. And so to have a guy that absolutely feels the same way about their university as they do helps people buy in and push that as far as we're all in. And we are, with this building, it's the nicest facility in the country. They thought of everything whenever it comes to player health and player recovery and then player happiness. Every bit of the Womble football facility is built for the player. And then the sky bridge over to the south end zone, man, it's a game changer in this stadium, man. It just totally changed the way the stadium looks.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize, like when you talk about a GM, like I think that's a foreign term. Like that didn't used to apply to college. So like, how did you? And you said I think he was a scout for the Panthers, right? And so he's had some NFL experience. So how did you know that was something where the game was going and you were going to hire a GM and what that meant for the college game? Because that means you studied the NFL. That means you knew what they did at the NFL level and their job responsibilities, and you knew what was coming. But how did you get to that point?
Well, old school, I always struggled with the old school model of like, I would watch recruits, and then my evaluation went to the coordinator and he would watch, and then it would go to the head coach. He would watch, and then we'd watch as a staff. And I'm like, well, two things. Number one, I was feeling like, man, we should already get these guys offered so we could start building relationships so we have a longer build. The second thing, there was a couple times that my eval where I really liked a player went to the DC and he didn't like it. So then it never got to the head coach. So I actually went to the head coach and said, Coach, I would have, of course, I didn't mean it this way, but I was basically saying, Coach, I'm going to stop watching film. Let the DC watch everybody. And he was like, why? And I said, well, I'm wasting my time. If I feel like we should offer a player, especially a player that I'm going to coach at my position, and the DC doesn't want to, but he never gets to you, that's a screwed up way of doing things. And, the old traditional system, that's the old traditional system. And I was like, we're going to go a total opposite way. I've got 4 guys that all they do 24/7 is watch film and evaluate players. One of them was an NFL scout, so he knows NFL traits and what they're looking at, and he has trained these guys. And I said, so let's do the opposite. Let's let these guys create the guys that we're going to watch. We do want the input from the coaches, but those coaches are spending a lot of time now coaching and developing relationships with our current team. And so it's an easier model and it's a more efficient model to say, hey, here's who we're offering. Let's go recruit these guys versus spending these times watching film. We still watch film as a staff. We still watch film, every week. My personnel staff is going to go in with the coaches and they're going to watch the guys they've identified. But we're working this way instead of working this way. And I think we're more efficient and we get offers out sooner to start building relationships. And I think it's helped us be successful in recruiting.
Yeah, that's cool. And what you heard Coach say too, don't take over lightly, the #1 recruiting transfer portal class in the country. Like we used to hear about, and I read this in an article talking about you guys, like it used to be like National Signing Day was the Super Bowl. Like it was the big deal. That's what we're building towards. Like you guys said, that's cool and that's fine, but that's not our Super Bowl. And y'all chose to do it through the transfer portal. And how did you identify those guys? Like, was there a specific trait you were looking for? Because I'm writing down, I'm looking at offensive line, defensive line, and secondary. Right. I'm not surprised when you look at the NFL. Lines of scrimmage is a huge deal. Secondary last year was a struggle of you guys, so that makes makes sense. So how did that's a big deal. Like signing that class, a #1 transfer portal class. But how did you shift from high school recruiting to that and everybody be okay with it? Because that's different.
Yeah. Well, we still signed a good number of, like we moved 27 new Red Raiders in to their places on January 10th, and 17 of them were transfer portal, and then another 10 were high school kids, and then we have another 9 high school kids coming in June. So there's a balance, but I think everybody saw, like when we're talking about everybody, Cody Campbell, Dusty Womble, John Sellers, Gary Peterson, these guys that have been behind us, Mike Wallace, man, we're a fumble away from playing in the Big 12 championship. We beat Arizona State and Iowa State, who played in the Big 12 championship. And so we're right there. Well, what gets you over the hump? Big people beat up little people. So we got to get better, in the offensive, defensive line. And then we were not very good, defending the pass. And so we went out and one reason we weren't good at defending the pass, we were young in the secondary. So we wanted to go get some vets, some guys that have played a lot of snaps. And so we started out identifying some offensive linemen that could really help. And then identifying some defensive linemen and some secondary. But one thing we've done in the portal is we don't take a lot of young players. We want to take guys that have played a lot of reps that are ready to play. Because if you came and you watched us right now go through football school, you could see those old linemen that we took. But then my babies, my redshirt sophomores and my redshirt freshmen that we recruited out of high school, they're growing and they're maturing. And so we'll have to take less and less. But I'm not having to play a player that's physically and mentally not ready to play, major snaps that are going to get beat up and maybe stunt their growth. And so that's what we've tried to do through the portal is, take older guys and help the young guys grow up.